She's not laughing because it's funny. She's laughing because she already knows the relationship is over. That's the moment that changed everything about Pillow Talk for me. Not the wine, not the snark, not the cozy blankets and matching pajamas. It was that split-second look between two former cast members watching a new couple fall apart on screen during best Pillow Talk takes from 90 Day Fiancé, Pillow Talk before the 90 days. And if you caught it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Because Pillow Talk was never just reaction TV. It's confession. When TLC launched 90 Day Fiancé Pillow Talk as a spin-off to the main 90 Day universe, fans thought it was just bonus commentary. Former couples sitting in bed, throwing shade, eating snacks, reacting to the chaos of before the 90 days. But here's the part TLC cameras didn't show. Those reactions weren't just jokes. They were warnings. You're watching people who already survived the K-1 visa war. They've been through immigration interviews, financial sponsorship stress, cultural shock, and that brutal 90-day countdown where love gets measured like a ticking bomb. So when they react to a meltdown on screen, they're not guessing. They're remembering. I know what you're thinking. It's just entertainment. Just a bunch of ex-cast members laughing at bad decisions. But listen to this. During one of the most talked about Pillow Talk moments, when a before the 90 days couple had that explosive argument about trust and hidden messages on Instagram, you could see the tension in the room between the Pillow Talk pair watching it. One of them made a sarcastic comment, sure, but then there was that silence, that pause. The kind of pause you only make when you've lived through the same betrayal. And fans noticed. On Reddit, the 90 Day Fiancé subreddit lit up. Threads analyzing body language, tweets on X asking if TLC edited out a bigger conversation. Because viewers realized something uncomfortable. The couples reacting weren't just commentators, they were cautionary tales. This is where the 90-day dream quietly fell apart. Best Pillow Talk takes isn't just a highlight reel of funny one-liners. It's a montage of trauma disguised as humor. You see former cast members reacting to someone flying halfway across the world for love, only to discover secrets in the first 24 hours. And instead of gasps, you get knowing nods, eye rolls, I've been there looks. And around the 2-minute mark of watching that compilation, something hit me hard. If you're the kind of viewer who reads between the lines, who rewatches scenes to catch the subtle shade, you're already part of this tiny club of people who don't just watch 90 Day, we dissect it. So if you're here for the real story behind what TLC edits out, you're in the right place. Stick with me, because what happened next proves this franchise is way deeper than it looks. Back to that Best Pillow Talk compilation. One segment shows a before the 90 Days star confronting their partner about online dating apps still being active. On the main episode, it's dramatic. Tears, accusations, that classic, "Why are you still on there?" meltdown. But on Pillow Talk, one of the reacting cast members just whispers, "That's not the first time." It was quiet, almost throwaway. But fans froze. Because off-camera, months before, screenshots had leaked on Instagram suggesting that very same couple had been fighting about social media long before filming. Allegedly, production encouraged them to save the confrontation for the trip to make it more dramatic. Now, I'm not saying TLC scripts everything, but the timeline felt convenient. And this is where the show gets layered. When you watch Best Pillow Talk takes, you're watching people who know how production works. They know how confessionals are filmed after the fact. They know how one sentence can be spliced into a totally different context. So when they react, sometimes they're reacting to what they know happened, not just what aired. There was a moment where one Pillow Talk couple laughed at a before the 90 Days star crying over a prenup discussion. It looked cruel at first. Social media called them insensitive. Twitter exploded with takes about mean girl energy. But then, days later, a former production assistant hinted online that the prenup storyline was pushed hard by producers because the real argument was too boring for TV. Suddenly, the laughter made sense. Because maybe they weren't laughing at heartbreak, maybe they were laughing at how predictable the edit was. I know that sounds cynical, but if you followed this franchise long enough, you know how often the narrative shifts after filming ends. Couples who looked doomed survive. Couples who seemed solid implode after tell-all. And Pillow Talk sits right in the middle, reacting in real time while knowing how it all ends. That's the emotional weight you feel in Best Pillow Talk Takes. Take the scenes where cast members react to someone meeting their partner's family for the first time overseas. The awkward dinners, the side eyes from parents, the questions about money. On the surface, it's funny. Cultural misunderstandings, translation fails. But look closer. When a former cast member watches that, there's something almost protective in their tone, because they remember walking into a house where nobody wanted them there. This is where the 90-day dream cracks again. The K-1 visa process isn't just paperwork, it's pressure. One American sponsor financially responsible for someone they barely know in person. Background checks, interviews designed to catch fraud, and every argument becomes high stakes because immigration is hanging over your head. So when Pillow Talk shows a couple screaming about jealousy, the reaction isn't just, wow, that's toxic. It's, that's going to destroy their visa case. And fans online know it too. On Reddit, people dissect whether certain fights could be used as evidence of a sham relationship. On X, viewers speculate about who's really in it for a green card and who's just naive. The audience isn't passive anymore. They're investigators. Best Pillow Talk Takes captures that collective suspicion. There's one clip in the compilation where a Pillow Talk couple watches a Before the 90 Days star send money overseas again and again and again. One of them says, "You're not in love, you're in debt." It's a joke, but it hits hard. Because later that season, it came out that the American had drained their savings to fund trips, gifts, even cosmetic procedures. TLC didn't emphasize the financial devastation until after fans started digging into court records and public filings. That's when the real story surfaced. But here's the part TLC cameras didn't show: the mental toll. When those Pillow Talk couples laugh, sometimes it's because if they don't laugh, they'd have to admit how close they came to losing everything too: homes, family relationships, credit scores, dignity. There's a raw honesty in those reactions that makes Best Pillow Talk Takes feel almost therapeutic. Former cast members reclaiming the narrative, turning painful experiences into commentary. And then there are the betrayals. Oh, the betrayals. One of the most replayed moments in the compilation shows a Before the 90 Days star discovering their partner had been messaging multiple Americans at the same time. The main episode framed it as a shocking twist. But on Pillow Talk, one cast member just smirked and said, "Of course they were." That line sent fans spiraling, because on Instagram, months earlier, someone had claimed that this wasn't new information, that the American partner already knew, but agreed to rediscover it on camera for dramatic impact. Was that true? We don't have proof, but the skepticism stuck. And this is where the audience splits. Some viewers defend the couples, saying editing can make anyone look guilty. Others insist the red flags were obvious from day one. Pillow Talk amplifies that divide because the reactions often validate what fans are already thinking, and sometimes they contradict it. There's a segment in Best Pillow Talk Takes where a Pillow Talk couple defends a Before the 90 Days star that fans had labeled manipulative. They point to cultural differences, translation gaps, trauma triggers. It reframes the scene entirely. Suddenly, the villain doesn't look so evil. That's the power of perspective. But I need you to stay with me because this next part is where it gets uncomfortable. Off-screen relationships between Pillow Talk cast members aren't always as solid as they appear. Fans have noticed tension, subtle jabs, comments that feel too personal, and in a few cases, couples who looked united while reacting to others' drama later announced separations of their own. So when you watch Best Pillow Talk Takes and see a pair laughing at someone else's collapsing relationship, there's an eerie irony. Sometimes they were already struggling privately. This is where the 90-Day Dream quietly fell apart again. Because the franchise thrives on love under pressure, but pressure doesn't disappear after filming. Fame adds another layer. DMs from strangers, sponsorship deals, public scrutiny. Every argument becomes content. And Pillow Talk blurs that line between authenticity and performance. There's one clip where a cast member says, "I would never tolerate that." It sounds strong, empowered. But months later, fans uncovered posts suggesting they had tolerated something very similar in their own relationship. Hypocrisy or growth? That question keeps viewers hooked. Best Pillow Talk Takes works because it's layered storytelling. You're watching a show about people watching a show about love that may or may not be real. It's meta, and it's addictive. But the emotional core